Well, so many questions now after a second apparent assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump yesterday on his golf course in Florida. And joining us right now is ABC's chief investigative reporter, Josh Margolin. Josh, good morning. I know the Secret Service was much more proactive on this situation than what happened in Pennsylvania, but isn't it still alarming that someone with an AK-47 got within 500 yards of the former president?
Well, that's exactly it. And frankly, that's a key part of the investigation and the post-game analysis that's going to go on right now. You know, there are some who are saying that, look, this was a success story. The Secret Service has redundancy after redundancy. When the former president travels around, he's not the current president. They don't shut down businesses. They try not to interfere with people's lives. At the same time, there are people who are saying, look, this was too close for comfort. There was somebody with a loaded or potentially loaded high-powered rifle with a scope 300 to 500 yards away from where the former president was at a location with a line of sight where the former president was about to, shoot around a hole of golf.
Josh, the FBI has been trying to be as detailed as they can, and they say still that it's not clear if the former president was the suspect's intended target. But if it wasn't the former president, who else could it have been?
Well, who else it could be? The club was open, right? And frankly, getting into the mind of somebody who may well have been having some sort of a break with reality, because that happens, we don't really know. The FBI and the Secret Service are acting on the basis that this was believed to have been an attempted assassination on the former president. They're not mincing words about that, and that's how they are investigating it. If it so happens that down the road they find that there was some other kind of motivation, I'm sure they'll be thrilled to announce that was the question yesterday, because a lot of times we have security episodes, especially in large cities, where you have some sort of a shooting near something, but it happens to be, say, like a gang fight, right? That happens all the time. The question is that this is not that kind of location. We're talking about a golf club that's not isolated. It's in the middle of a community, but it's secure. It's set aside. It's got fences around it.
And I can't imagine the former president giving up golf. That's like his daily thing.
Well, no, and that actually gets into this question about how did this person know that Trump might be there? This is not a publicly announced event. It was off the record. It was not on his schedule. At the same time, everybody knew that Trump was in Palm Beach. This is one of the locations that he tends to go to when he's down there because it's one of his spots. He owns the club. And then, additionally, he doesn't travel quietly or secretly. It's not because of Trump. It's because anybody who's under that level of protection has a huge security entourage and motorcade. So if you're somebody who's looking around and saying, I wonder if we're going to see Trump drive by, it's like in Washington. If you wait outside the White House grounds long enough, you'll see the motorcade of the president or the vice president.
ABC News chief investigative reporter Josh Margolin joining us this morning on Arizona's Morning News. In the last 12 hours, Josh, have we learned anything new about the suspect?
We've learned a considerable amount about his online life. He's a 58-year-old person. He had a lot to say online. He was at one point a Trump supporter. Then he soured on Trump. He seems to be very keenly active in the pro-Ukraine issue right now, the politics of Ukraine versus Russia. He said he had gone to Ukraine to try to be a foreign fighter on behalf of Ukraine against Russia. He had tried to recruit others to fight on behalf of Ukraine against Russia. That's a key area of the investigation because obviously we do know that Trump's position on Ukraine and Russia is controversial and is an issue in this current political campaign that's going on. So that is definitely that's coming out. And then his personal, his business, and his criminal history. He had an arrest on his record from back about 15, 20 years ago in a barricaded subject episode where he was charged with possessing an automatic rifle, which is against the law. So all of this is now starting to come out. Now, we have to caution that at this point, law enforcement has not charged him, and it's not clear that any of this played any role or what role it might have played in what might have happened yesterday.
Right. So what now? Is security going to amp up anyway on the former president? Again, I mean, we thought we had amped up security after what happened 2 months ago.
Well, immediately after something happens with any of these kinds of things, remember a few years ago when Obama was president, we had a couple of incursions on the White House grounds. And as soon as anything happens, they immediately assess and reassess security planning, not just for Trump, of course, but for Harris, who's the Democratic opponent. She's the vice president. For President Biden, who's obviously under the highest level of Secret Service protection. So that goes on immediately. Also, it's important to know the Secret Service, given their druthers, they would love all of these people who are under their protection to literally just get bubble wrapped and be locked in their kitchen because that's the safest place. But that's unreasonable 50 days before an election.
Right.
Trump has to be out there in public. He has to go to events. So there are things they're going to do. Will they add personnel? Almost assuredly. Would they rather have only indoor political events? Because obviously political events that are announced are obviously the most risky just because the public knows that a certain person is going to be there at a certain time. It takes away the element of surprise and secrecy. So they would love to have more indoor events. They might prefer to go to places that Trump or any of these people tends not to go to. So like when Biden goes to an ice cream store in Virginia to visit to buy an ice cream cone, maybe they go to a different ice cream store.
Right.
These kinds of little things, by the way, may sound silly. They are actually very important for security because the best security is when nobody thinks to expect you. Right? There was like a scene in The American President where the president stops off at a flower shop. But nobody thought he was going to go to the flower shop. That's the kind of thing. So they are going to immediately assess and reassess these things.
Josh Margolin, ABC News Chief Investigative Reporter. We appreciate the info this morning on Arizona's Morning News.
Thanks for watching Arizona's Morning News. Click to watch more from KTAR News and hit the button in the middle to subscribe.